not have organized structures that can oversee succession of leadership.
Right.
Because as you have rightly put it, we have not seen a political party go into two consecutive elections. There's always change. There's always a coalition. There's always change of leadership. Especially now with a death, then you realize there is a huge disarray. So that is one concern. Number two, these people that are being, as you say, exiled to other positions, and others are forming other functions to try and form various movements, they are not yet speaking to our national issues.
Correct.
Which I believe is a conversation every political party ought to be advancing, that people can start subscribing to the ideology of the party that you're trying to populate. The other thing is that Raila Odinga was retired by the Gen Z. They asked him to stay home.
Yes.
You have served this country well. This is the end, no further. But he betrayed them when he went, according to their word, to form the broad-based government. So even as ODM struggles to redefine itself, a lot of people do not have faith in that, because ODM was Baba and Baba was ODM, and the betrayal prevailed. So how do we balance all this lack of political party structures, lack of a national agenda where we could be saying this might be what we need 2027 or this is not what we need? How do we find the balance between building political parties or movements towards 2027 and sticking to the issue-based politics?
I think the place to start is, Karuti Kanyinga, the professor, who said very, in a very nuanced way, that Kenya is a country of minorities. And therefore, we are condemned or predestined all the time to form coalitions. Therefore, political parties are simply streams heading to major rivers. And that is our history, that is our tradition. When we were defining the Constitution, we defined Kenya as a bi-party state, as a two-party state when it is governing, and a multi-party state when we are going through an election. Immediately the elections are over, we are a two-party state. That's the idea of 50% plus one, so that it will create a split. The minority and the majority, and that is now constituted in parliament during the governing phase. Now, if you get that in mind, then you get back now to the genius aspect of Raila Odinga. Because Raila Odinga knew when to take on baggage or extra burden and when to shed it off. That he knew very well. Before the elections, Raila would always come with these, tantalizing concepts about things. So whether you're talking about the orange movement, because that's what gave birth to ODM, the orange movement, or the NAC movement before that, right? And finally the CORD movement, or the NASA movement, right? And finally Azimio, La Umoja. All these are bodies that Raila would have champion before the election, because he knew ODM as ODM can never win a presidential election, because Kenya is a country of minorities and the Ruo can never get the presidency alone. At the same time, you need to get the presidency within a very well crafted coalition, and therefore in 2027, if Raila was arrived, we were waiting to see a new coalition being formed, not as Azimio, as my friend Karoli Omondi and others would tell me, because Azimio had run its course. Now, Kagwanja is a big figure in Mount Kenya region. He was never in Azimio. He was in Kenya Kwanza. So how do you tell him that he belongs to Azimio? He doesn't belong there. So in short, Raila Odinga would have now been thinking about what is the next movement that is going to take us to 2027. And therefore, you need to look at those things. Immediately after the election, the first person to betray the movement, the Azimio, Kenya Kwanza, and all that would be Raila. And that was the beef he had with Wetangula. It's the beef he had with Kalonzo. It's the beef he had with Mudavadi. His lifetime, buddies in terms of electoral politics. And it is actually the problem he had with Mother Karua immediately after the election, and why PLP left Azimio. We left because they felt betrayed, because that's not what we were fighting for during the election. So, in other words, you need to understand that as Raila. But picking from your earlier question about Jesus the activist,
right,
and Jesus the legacy that we have now of the largest human movement, which you call Christianity today, is Raila's, heading to that direction? He can and may not.
No.
Jesus himself